soon as you're born, they make you feel small by giving you no time instead of it all, till the pain is so big you feel nothing at all. A working class hero is something to be. A working class hero is something to be. They hurt you at home and they hit you at school. They hate you if you're clever and they despise a fool.
Hello and welcome to this video recording of the revision guide for Inspector Calls by JB Priestley. As normal, we're going to cover the two assessment criteria. That's AO1, understanding what the play is about, its key ideas and attitudes, and AO2, its language, form and structure, and make reference to the effects created. Today's video is going to focus on Edna. As normal, we're going to look first at the stage direction before going through the rest of the play. She is described as neatly dressed and in her late 20s. Priestley makes Edna a similar age to Eva and Sheila. They are all in their mid-20s. She is presented simply as a servant who is controlled by the Burlings in everything she does. She is neatly dressed, which implies that at the celebration she is simply there to show off the Burlings' wealth and excess. Most of the characters can either be defined as capitalist or socialist, but Edna, because she's so silent, isn't really classified as either one. Edna represents the control of the lower classes by the rich. She is a servant and so not really thought of as a person. She represents the reliance on the working class by the rich. The rich cannot function without the lower classes serving them. She represents the inescapable plight of the lower classes. She cannot not serve the Burlings without there being consequences. And of course she represents Eva. Edna is the closest thing we get to Eva Smith on the stage. Edna is one of the millions of Eva Smiths and John Smiths out there. Edna's primary function in the play is to bring in the inspector. It is the working class that make the Burlings listen. They force the Burlings to reflect on their own lives. The fact that Edna does not escort the inspector out of the play further suggests that the lesson has not been learnt and equality has yet to happen. It is also Edna who changes the lighting when the inspector enters. It is Edna who changes the atmosphere from pink to brighter and harder. Let's look at Edna's actions then through the whole play. Edna sets the stage for the inspector. She answers the door to the inspector and escorts him in. She turns up the lights. And she disappears for the rest of the play before she announces Gerald's return after the inspector has gone. From the outset, Edna is unable to have a voice.
Probably in half an hour, Edna. I'll ring from the drawing room.
Well.
Let's look at Edna's context. Edna is the maid in the house whose role is to serve. She would have been paid very little and is simply there to serve the upper classes. She appears forbidden to offer an opinion and spends most of the few minutes she has on stage serving each of the Burlings. Edna is the silent image of the dead Eva. Even their names are similar. She is unable to speak due to the trappings of her role, responding to the Burlings' demands in simple, formal language. She wouldn't dare do anything else. She is a direct contrast to the lavish lifestyle and verbosity of the Burlings. Let's look closer then at some of the stage direction that describes her. Yes, Mummy, go on, drink to our health. Edna goes to the table. Very well then, just a little thank you. To Edna, who's about to go with the tray. All right, Edna, I'll ring from the drawing room when we want coffee. Probably in about half an hour. Edna crosses the kitchen door. Edna, yes, Mum. Edna goes out. They all have their glasses filled. Burling beams at them and clearly relaxes now the working class have left. Well, well, this is very nice, very nice. Good dinner too, Sybil. Tell cook from me. Absolutely first class. Arthur, you're not supposed to say such things. Edna's role in the house is shown through repeated stage direction. Her silence creates the impression that the working class are objects. The use of ring here exaggerates the role Edna has as an object that the Burlings at best treat like a pet. Edna's very formal, polite simplicity indicates her complete subservience to the Burlings. And Mr. Burling suggests that it isn't just Edna he treats like a servant, it is his own wife as well. Please, sir. Yes? An inspector's called. An inspector? What kind of inspector? A police inspector. He says his name's Inspector Gould. Don't know him. Does he want to see me? Yes, sir. He says it's important. All right, Edna, show him in here. Edna goes out. It may be something about a warrant. I'm still on the bench. The word please suggests that Edna is almost afraid to interrupt Mr. Burling. We get the sense that Edna will be punished if she does not act in a way Arthur expects. The repetition of the title of the play here makes clear Edna's important role. She represents the silent working class who hold the Burlings into account at their trial. Mr. Burling reluctantly allows Edna to do her duty. Arthur unwittingly lets the socialist crank into his world. And now we have 4 key quotes from Edna. She only speaks around 36 words in the whole play. Giving us more port, Edna, that's right. Please, sir, an inspector's called. I asked her to wait up and make us more tea, and show him in here, give us more light. Some of these quotes, of course, spoken by other characters about Edna or to Edna, rather than spoken by Edna herself. The quotes about a character does not always have to be what the character says. It can be things other people say about them. Let's look closely then at Edna's behaviour in this key scene.
Look after himself and his own...
Somebody at the front door.
Or Edna answer it. Ah, come on, Gerald, we'll have another glass of this and then we'll join the ladies.
If you'll just wait here, sir, I'll go and tell Mr. Burling.
An inspector? What kind of inspector?
A police inspector. He says his name's Inspector Gould.
Oh, I don't know him. Does he want to see me?
Yes, sir. He says it's important.
All right, then, leave it a show him in here.
Yes, sir.
I'm still on the bench. It's probably something about a warrant.
Sure to be. Unless, of course, Eric's been up to something. That would be awkward, wouldn't it?
Very.
Inspector Gould.
Mr. Burling?
Yes. Well, sit down.
One of the key things Edna says is show him in here, that Edna was directed to do is show him in here, give us more light. Imperatives like show and give are simple commands to show how inferior the working class were. The word us is a pronoun for the upper classes and suggests how, without the workers, the upper class would not be able to function. In simple terms, the lower class give while the upper classes take. This line only appears in some versions of the play. It represents the change in atmosphere and tone before and after the inspector arrives. The pink, rose-tinted worldview of the Burlings is forever changed when Edna turns up the light, or the spotlight, on each of their attitudes and behaviours. The writer's purpose. Edna represents the silent millions who are unable to speak, unable to leave their work, due to the power the upper classes had over them. Edna is clearly a long-serving maid at the Burlings' house, but is not allowed to celebrate with them, simply answers the door and fills their wine glasses. It is the inspector that Edna lets in that does the speaking for her. Audience reactions in 1945. What would they think of Edna? Priestley makes Edna invisible, but she does add to the sense the world of the Burlings live in is out of date and old-fashioned. Very few houses would have had maids in 1912, and the practice of having servants, who were paid next to nothing, to do the homeowner's work was antiquated. Edna is even asked to wait up, because the Burlings don't want to go to their own front door. This would help alienate the Burlings from the audience. Let's look at two quotes I've yet to cover then, and what we might say about them. Throughout the play, Edna's role never changes. Even between Edna and Eva, we see the choice available to the working classes. Essay guidance. Remember, this is a morality play. It is trying to teach us the message of socialism. None of the characters are real. They are constructs built to represent different parts of society. It is very unlikely the examiner will ask about Edna on her own in the exam. You could be asked a question on Arthur or Sheila or Eric, but Edna's name is unlikely to come up as part of the exam question. However, the examiner might mention her relationship with the Burlings, or she's a useful character to know a bit about if you're asked about the theme of class. The other revision resources I've created have lots of information on this theme, but Gerald, Arthur and Edna might be a really good set of characters to explore for a task that is linked to class. An essay on class might begin with, as the play is a moralistic tale that preaches equality and socialism, it is inevitable that the theme of class would be important. All of the different classes are represented by Priestley, from the upper class, and then you talk about who you might want to talk about, which upper class characters you might want to focus on, as well as the lower class ones as well. The next paragraph might look at the three different characters. So my sentence starters might read, the best example of the class divide in 1912 is, he, she or she challenges us to think about. Priestley constructs this character to represent. You could fill in whichever character you'd like as the endings to these sentences, and then think about which quotes you'd want to choose for them. I would go on to look at a key moment for this character using several quotes, and a bit of analysis to show how he or she suggests class, checking that I have analysed quote, mentioned the audience and Priestley, and made at least 3 different points about the character I've chosen. It might be a good idea now to pause this video and create this paragraph based on a character of your choice. I would then go on in my next paragraph to say as follows. Priestley juxtaposes, enter the name of the character I mentioned in the last paragraph, with this makes clear the different roles upper and lower, rich and poor had in society at the time, as by 1945, when the play was performed, the divides between the classes were beginning to break down. Priestley constructs this character to represent. I would go on to look at a key moment for this character, using several quotes and a bit of analysis to show how he or she suggests class. Once again checking I've analysed a quote, mentioned the audience and Priestley, and made at least 3 different points about them. Notice I use the word juxtaposes. This means the opposite to, so I'd want to choose 2 characters that are the complete opposites of each other. For example, Edna and Gerald. Then I might go on, of course, to look at my key example of the working class. In this case, Edna. Finally, Priestley also constructs the character of Edna to represent the silent lower classes who are subservient to the Burlings. Edna, whose name is very similar to Eva, is the maid to the Burlings and simply follows commands. Yet she is vital to the play as she lets the inspector in. This implies the importance of the working class had to the upper class, as, without them, the upper classes could not survive. The quote, show him in here, give us some more light, confronts us with a rude and abrupt Mr. Burling. using imperatives to command Eva to do what he wants. Imperatives like show and give are simple commands to show how inferior the working class were. This line only appears in some versions of the play. It represents the change in atmosphere and tone before and after the inspector arrives. Priestley has the pink, rose-tinted worldview of the upper-class Burlings forever changed when the working-class Edna turns up the light or spotlight on each of their attitudes and behaviours. Later in the play, Sybil is even more unkind to Edna. I asked her to wait up and make us more tea. Sybil Burling treats Edna the same way as Arthur. Edna is expected to wait up past her normal working hours in order to continue to serve the Burlings. We know that Edna is in her late 20s, so is likely to have a family, but even they come second to the Burlings' comfort. After this paragraph, I'd want to add a conclusion that explores how the theme of class makes Priestley's message of socialism clearer. Now I've talked about all the different characters in these various revision videos, I might start thinking about which characters I talk about for different themes. Creating a grid like this would be really useful to help you do that. So some of the themes you could be asked about would be personal responsibility, social class, sex or discrimination, the age and generation gap, the supernatural, perhaps Inspector Gould, time, and truth and lies. So I think about how confident I felt if any of these things came up, and which character or characters I'd want to talk about. For any one of these themes, I wouldn't really want to cover any more than 3 characters, and I'd select the best characters to suit the exam question set. I'd want to show off my knowledge about each of the characters, but making sure I link to the theme each time. So although I've given you lots of information on Arthur or Gerald or Sheila, I'd make sure that information was relevant to the theme I'm actually being asked about. A bit of a revision guide there, or a revision resource for you to use, potentially to plan your answers to theme-based questions. Thank you very much then for listening to this revision guide for Edna. This has been in revision for your GCSE post-1914 drama.